Does home staging make a difference when we go to sell a property? And what are some hot color choices for the new year that we and our sellers need to know about? We are so excited to be here with Lydia Bass, who is an interior designer. She's a home stager. She is the founder of Fruitful Interiors and Staging. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
As we dive in, we all want to know what the hot color choices are. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, sure. So when preparing your home for sale, we definitely want to go neutral. So in many of the homes now where people are going for more light and bright and airy spaces.
Right.
So from a paint color perspective, a color I like to recommend is called Simply White. It's like a nice neutral. It's not like a stark white. It has a little bit of warmth to it, but it still photographs well. In kitchens, people are definitely going for white, and just like a minimalist color palette is really in now. So pairing, your whites with your blacks or whites with navy, with pops of gold metal is definitely trending now. So yeah, just mixing that in and going neutral, like with your main furniture pieces, and then adding color with throw pillows and things like that. Test out the paint color in the room and see, how it actually appears on your wall.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between home staging and interior design? Sometimes it gets confusing.
Yeah. That's a really good question. So basically, home staging is visual merchandising for your home. And so the product that we're trying to sell is the house. So the focus is on bringing out like the best features in the house. So if there's like a certain color palette that's in the room, we'll bring in furnishings and decor to really highlight like the structure that we're working with, so that when buyers walk through the room, they really fall in love with the house and not necessarily fall in love with your stuff. I'll say for interior decorating, that's definitely more for your style. So I personally like do both in my business, but when I'm working with clients for interior design, like everybody has different tastes, right? So it's definitely more personal to your taste versus home staging. We're appealing to the masses because we want to appeal to a broad audience and eventually get an offer for that house.
Do you find that it actually influences their purchase decision?
Oh, absolutely. So buyers are very emotional. So home staging, the key or the goal with home staging is to really create that emotional connection. And so a lot of times as a buyer, when you walk in a room, it's things that you subconsciously think about, just in terms like the smell of the room, the lighting, how you feel. That all plays into your emotions. So it's definitely an art and a science to it. And when it works, the buyers come in and they fall in love with the home. They go home, they look at the pictures, they show all their friends like, hey, this is the house I want to buy. And it's really like an emotional connection, and it leads them to write that big ticket purchase faster. We're all a little hesitant to buy stuff, especially like when it's large amounts of money. I know
Right.
Even with myself, like it's not just like going and buying a pack of gum. Like it takes more time, and that's why real estate transactions take a little longer because they're so emotionally driven. But home staging helps that connection to happen faster.
Now, would you use a seller's items, or would you bring your own items in when you stage a home?
That's a really good question. So for vacant staging, we 100% use all of our own inventory. So most of the staging companies, including my own here in Atlanta, we own all of our staging inventory, which is great, meaning that we're able to offer more competitive rates than if you were to go to like a Quartz rental or Aaron's rental. And we have a larger variety of furnishings, so we're able to add and offer more trendy pieces that'll really make your pictures pop. So especially in Atlanta, it's kind of like fashion capital here. So people want their houses to be unique and different.
Right.
So same philosophy, with staging. So yeah.
A lot of us have the issue of having just a little bit too much stuff and could probably benefit from decluttering. It may be a common issue that you see. What tips can you offer home sellers when it comes to decluttering their space and just getting their home ready in general to sell?
Another good question. So in terms of decluttering, the way I think about it is to always start with the core function of a room. So for example, say I have a bedroom, what do I need in my bedroom for my bedroom to be a bedroom? Like, I obviously have to have a bed. I may want nightstands, but like if that home has like a huge walk-in closet, buyers may not need a dresser or, an armoire, so different things like that aren't critical to the core function of the room. We could possibly parse those things out and kind of create more walking and visual space in the room. So you never want to cut out things that are going to take away from the function of the room. So I always start with that as like the base.
What style do you find is the most appealing to the broadest audience? Because when we go to list a home, we're thinking about appealing to the masses.
Right. Just from a style perspective, we use a lot of transitional pieces. So for those of you who aren't familiar with transitional pieces, they're not too modern, but they're not too traditional. They're definitely like a mix with clean lines, and it's kind of like the perfect pair of jeans. You can dress it up, you can dress it down, sort of thing. So that's kind of the style, that we kind of go after.
So if you're a seller and you're on a limited budget, can home staging still be for you?
Yes, home staging is for everyone that is selling their home, in my opinion. So I will say, like, if you're on a limited budget, there are certain things you can do to, elevate your home from a price effective perspective. So if say you're living in the house and you're staging it and you want to keep like your own core furniture pieces, one way you can do that is by purchasing new bedding. And purchasing new pillows for your living area. So those are just little things where you can mix like the old with the new to really still give it like that fresh perspective. And I always recommend painting as having like the biggest ROI impact. You'll really be surprised what a fresh coat of paint can do to really elevate your space.
What advice could you give us for small rooms?
Small rooms. So yeah. So let's see how I can speak on this. So here's like a few things. So what I was telling you guys earlier, just in terms of you never want to cut out the function in a room, and that goes for small spaces as well. Because sometimes you may have a small living room, and somebody will say, well, I'm not going to put a coffee table in there. I'm going to just put a sofa and one chair, and that kind of turns buyers off because they feel like there's no room for that thing. So instead of approaching it from that standpoint, I recommend, making sure that you have all of the core elements of a living room, but just making sure that you have it to scale. So that means, maybe a smaller sofa with 2 smaller accent chairs, different things like that, where they still feel like, wow, I can fit all of this in this room, but it still feels, spacious. And the other thing to note with smaller rooms is that furniture definitely makes the room feel larger. So yeah, like if you're working with a small room, I definitely recommend that you stage it to, have a really good impact on that. One other thing, I feel like I'm being a bit long-winded. One other thing with smaller spaces, another recommendation I have is to use like glass objects. So like a glass coffee table, a glass console, like furniture pieces that aren't visually as heavy. So using like a glass coffee table isn't visually going to take up as much space as like a really heavy, solid dark wood one.
Right.
So those are just some other things to kind of keep in mind when staging small spaces.
Now, when it comes to lighting, so we're also thinking about photos when we go to list a home. How can we get the most out of our lighting so we have the most impact?
First thing is make sure all your light fixtures have light bulbs in them. And then the actual tint of the light bulb matters. Now they have light bulbs that have more of a white natural light tint. So I always recommend using those light bulbs because they photograph better. It gives the room more of a natural feel versus I don't know if you ever walk into a room that has like the yellow looking lighting,
hue.
the yellow hue. So the white hue definitely photographs a bit better. windows, I recommend typically either no draperies and blinds to kind of let in the optimal light, or if you do have blinds, to go for like the versus
larger.
like but I don't know the terminology for them versus the real thin ones, because they let in more natural light.
Right. Well, Lydia, thank you so much for being here with us. This was some wonderful tips and advice and things for us to keep in mind when we list homes and we're talking with the sellers. So
right.
we cannot thank you enough.
Thank you for having me.